Semilore I'm currently a student at the University of North Texas. Right now, I'm studying biomedical engineering with a minor in material science and mathematics. I want to give a big thank you to the organizers of this program for inviting me to come and speak. It saddens me that I couldn't be in person with you guys, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to still move forth and create this video for you. One thing that I want to point across before I start the dissertation of my words is that this concept, these ideas that are being presented before you, I made sure that I dissected myself before bringing it to you. The words that I'm going to speak to you are words that spoke to me first before I brought it before you. That brings me to the topic that I want to bring forth today. There's a question that I want you guys to course through your minds right now. The question is, what makes a person valuable? I'm going to repeat it again. What makes a person valuable? There's many things that come to mind. Is it how much money a person has? Is it how many zeros range in a person's bank account? Is it how much prestige or power or popularity a person has? Is it their ability to walk into a room and jaws drop for them? I think the answer to those things, at least in my opinion, is no. There's a few things that I want you guys to take away in terms of what makes a person valuable, and it's two things. Firstly, what you know, and secondly, what you can do with what you know. Now, those things sound pretty simple and abstract, but when we extend them and bring it to a different realm, it's a lot more than meets the eye. Firstly, what you know. I mean, that's pretty broad. It can come in many different forms. I think one form that we're all pretty familiar with when it comes to what we know or what we can know is education. We've all been through different forms of it, whether through pre-K and kindergarten, to middle school, to elementary school, to high school, and then some of us even go to college or go to graduate school. These are all forms of education, but it's only one piece of the fragment that comes to what we know and what we can know. We go through this learning math, learning science, learning various subjects that, bring up the matter in our brains. And then after some time, we develop what we actually want to do as a specification. Some of us want to be doctors, some of us want to be engineers, all that and so on. But we all come to the generalization that education is something important, no matter what route you go through. That's just one realm of what we know. Another aspect could be talents and skills. We acquire these, some of us from a young age, some of us later on. Some of us have hobbies that make us money. Some of us have hobbies that we just do for fun because it's something that enriches not only our brain, but our heart. And most of all, it's something that we're learning. Learning is essentially the thing that brings us all together. It's extremely vital. And it adds up to what we know and what we can know as human beings, and especially as young people. Why is that so important, what we know? What we know is so important because as human beings, even from birth to middle ages to old ages, we're always constantly learning, and we're always constantly using what we're learning. But what's the point of uses if you're not learning anything? That's why I stress the point of making a person valuable based off of their information, the information they can intake, the information they can learn, especially as a young person. What you know through school, what you learn through the classroom, and what you learn outside, whether you're playing a sport, whether you're playing an instrument, whether you're doing some sort of hobby that is just enriching your brain. It's something extremely important, and it's something that enriches us as young people, something that we should take extreme advantage of. Because we don't know where those things can take us. We don't know how far it can take us. We don't know what people we can meet with what we know. That then brings me to my second point, what you can do with what you know. What's the point of learning all this information, going through school, using tedious time to pick up traits, to pick up skills, to pick up gifts and talents, if it's not being used anywhere? It brings me to a story that I can recollect from my short time in college. As an engineer, I've taken almost every math class possible. You can name it, I've taken it. And I remember a time during the summer, I was taking a summer class back in Denton, Texas, in my college town. And I remember I was struggling with Calculus 2. Calculus 2 looked so abstract and so confusing. It was like I really wanted to have a serious conversation with the developers bringing alphabets into math. I think it was extremely excruciating. But that's just, a point out of the blue. To bring back to my story, I remember I would go to this place on campus called the Math Lab. The Math Lab was a place on campus where tutors who were graduate students from the math program worked for various hours helping students who came in with problems on homework or tests or quizzes, hoping to get solutions and finish their homework. And I remember during the summer I was going to utilize this math lab so I could come out with a good grade in Calculus 2. And to my surprise, I remember the first few days I went there, I met a lot of tutors who didn't know what they were doing. I don't mean that to be disrespectful. I know they were adults. But what I mean by that is what they knew as mathematicians and graduate students out of math wasn't really connecting with what they could do with what they knew. But that was until I met this man named Jake. Jake was a teacher also at the University of North Texas, but he was also one of the tutors. And when I met Jake, I knew instantly that he knew what he was doing and he knew what he could do with what he knew. Why I say that? All the problems I would bring to Jake, he would know the solution instantly. And he would break it down in a way that I would understand. And he really did his job well, proficiently, as a tutor. And even when I would come to the math lab and other tutors would offer their help, I didn't want to have their help because I knew that if I brought it to Jake, he would solve it and he would help me and I would leave knowing a little bit more about math. That's because he knew what he could do. He knew what he could do with what he knew, which is extremely important, and it made him extremely valuable to me. Even outside of class, I could see him and I could show him gratitude because of what he knew and what he could do with what he knew about mathematics. I think that was extremely important, and it brings me to you. What you can do with what you know is important. You do not want to be in the position of an employer, the position of friends, and they're seeking your help, they're seeking your guidance on a subject that you are familiar with, and you don't know how to make applications to those things. It's no use if you go through various times going through school, picking up traits, picking up talents, picking up gifts, and you can't make real-world applications with those things. The combination of the two things, what you know and what you can do with what you know, makes a person extremely valuable. I think when you combine those things, there's no limit to what you can reach. Whether you're in a profession, whether you're doing something on the side, no matter what it is, especially as a young person, we have to take advantage of information. See, information is something I think that surpasses a lot of different parameters. I feel like information can surpass, expenses and money and power at times, because even powerful people, they acquire information. But how can you know what you know and apply what you know if you don't have some, traits to pick up? There's a few traits that come into mind when it comes to making a combination of those two aspects to become a great young mind in the world. The first things that come into my mind is sacrifice. I know it's kind of hard to see that as a young person because we always want to do what we want to do, even in times when we know we're supposed to be doing what we're supposed to do or what we need to do. Sacrifice is extremely important. Sacrificing your free time, sacrificing hanging out with a friend or going out to do something fun when you're supposed to be indoors locking in on some work, locking in on some schoolwork, on some activities that at the end of the day will enrich you. I think sacrifice is one of the most important parameters and most important trait to pick up in terms of becoming a valuable person, a valuable young person in this day and age that we're in. I think another thing that comes into my mind is consistency. You know, you can do all the good things in a classroom, do all the good things at a job site, but if someone can't count on you to do those things consistently, they will look for other people that will. You don't want to be left out on something just because you weren't able to do that thing on a day-to-day basis. Consistency, it doesn't start with, a thought in the brain. It starts with action. The action, the ability to choose that you're going to make a good choice every day, and continuing to do that is something that builds consistency. You don't build consistency like with a magic wand. It doesn't occur like that. It occurs from day 1, and then day 2, and then day 3, and day 4. Imagine if babies just started running. That would make no sense. Babies have weak bones. They have weak legs. They have to crawl first. Then they have to walk. And then sooner or later, they can start to run to their parents. It's the same thing, and it equates to consistency. You start off with the first day, and you never look back, and you continue. I think another thing is being able to shake off some distractions. I feel like in this young world that we're in, I say young world because as advanced as the world is, there's still so many things that need to be discovered. And I feel like there's so many other things that deter us from doing those things. Laziness, not having diligence, and not really having a perception or a goal. If you don't have a real time goal, you want to do this at this date. You want to achieve this at this date. If you're just doing things on freelance, there's no way to really track your progress, which is why putting some things aside and really making a clear-cut goal, clear-cut perception of what kind of person you want to be, what kind of things you want to have, what kind of life you want to experience, you'll be able to have a better perception of who you are and who you want to be. And you can now make some real life goals and some real timed goals in order to achieve those things. When you put all those things together in equation with what we discussed about what you know and what you can do with what you know, in contribution, those things can become something beautiful, turning you into an extraordinary person. I think all of us, myself included, need to take this advice because we don't know what tomorrow looks like. We know that tomorrow is different. We know that tomorrow begs a new question, but I want to bring it to you that you can decide what the answer can be. It doesn't have to be the same old episode. It doesn't have to be an episode where you lose and other people are the winners. I believe you and I are winners. I believe we have all the potential, all the tools, and all the resources in order to receive our potential and expand our potential. But it starts with day 1. It starts with what decision you're going to make. What kind of person are you going to be? What kind of person is people going to tell you you are? You have to ask those questions and think about what answers you want instead of freelancing. I hope this touched you, and I hope this enriched you. Thank you. I would like to now pass it over to Dr. Olaide.